We're halfway through our Canadian cruise, with a 3-day stop in Quebec City. The first thing we see is the majestic Hotel Frontenac, towering over the city like a large medieval castle. But with our first day, we rent a car and head toward the countryside and the Isle d'Orléans. Most of the island is rural farmland, dotted with small communities. Our first stop is on the west point of the island, Sainte-Pétronelle. From here we have a great view of the city, and we make a quick stop at a local chocolate shop. Further down the road, we stop at Menor Mauva Geneste, a 1700s restored farmhouse. After watching a movie of the history of this area, we get a guided tour of what life was like in this manor around 1700s. On the east tip of the island, we walked up this observation tower, giving us a wonderful panorama of the countryside and the St. Lawrence Seaway. The island is also known for its apples and its production of hard apple cider. Here at this small family-run orchard, we bought some ice cider. The ice cider is made after the fruit is frozen on the tree, similar to the way ice wines are made. Back on the mainland, we visit Mount Morenci Falls. Talk about waterfalls. Even though we didn't take these stairs up to the top, they are very impressive. At about 275 feet high and 50 feet wide, the roar was just incredible. During the rest of the afternoon, we drove to the west, traveling back along the shoreline, including a stop at this frog sanctuary. After fighting the rain and hours of the traffic, due to the road closures from the Grand Prix cycle race, we managed to get back to the city. Quebec is a walled city, a little bit of medieval France dropped right here into Canada. With the primary language being French, and the many cobblestone streets and plazas, you would swear this city was taken right out of medieval France. The next day the rain was still with us, but it didn't slow us down as we explored the streets and the shops of this wonderful city. This building was a prison back in the early 1800s and is now a unique library run by the local junior college. Looking for a little something to eat to tide us over before dinner, we stop at this sandwich shop where we split a half a sandwich and a bowl of some of the most incredible cream of mushroom soup we've had before we indulge in a sweet dessert. Ending up at the terrace in front of the Hotel Chateau Fontarac, we notice there's an archaeological exhibition below the terrace. Apparently in the past this was a fortress protecting the waterway, and is now an exhibit run by the Canadian Museum System that you can tour through. Being on our feet all day, we decided to stop in at this English pub for a taste of the local brew. It's our last night together since Candy and Joe are driving on to Montreal, and to celebrate our anniversary, they treat us to a traditional fondue dinner. That night, we take a ghost tour of the city.
Tonight, you will hear stories of murders, executions and ghostly tragedies. We will conclude tonight's tour by entering one of Quebec's most haunted buildings.
This was really a beautiful city to see at night, especially with the creepy stories from our tour guide. The last stop of the tour, we got to go into a church that was closed for the night. No lights, just the candlelight from the lantern. And then in total darkness, he told us of the ghostly happenings within the church. We start our last day spending some time in what they call Lower Town. These buildings are older than the ones in the upper part of the city, and really give you a good sense of old Europe. This is the first of two incredibly detailed murals we saw, depicting some of the history these buildings have actually seen. This shop here is specialized in everything maple. Here the shopkeeper is making maple syrup suckers on a bed of ice.
There we go.
哦，你要吃啊？来吧。这边第一个给妹妹，好不好？
It's really impressive on this mural, and how the artist blends real life with the painting. You don't quite know where one ends and the other begins. Being so impressed with lunch yesterday, we decide to go to the same place for lunch today, with a second helping of that cream and mushroom soup and some more delicious looking pastries. They always look better than they actually are. Strolling down by the shoreline, we come across the train station and a very nice farmer's market, where we buy another bottle of iced cider. As we sail away from Quebec City, it was really nice to have those 3 days here. It would have been a shame to only have 1 day or two. After another day at sea, we're back in Charlottetown, this time for a culinary tour of the city.
Does anybody know a lot about lobster?
Oh, and a lot about lobster.
No? No? So I can tell you anything, right?
You can tell us anything and we probably believe
As long as I say it with conviction.
We start out at a lobster shack, where we get to sample some oysters, then on to a bakery, where we have some salt cod chowder with lobster butter. Next was a deli with some local cured meat and mozzarella. Next door we sampled a large variety of olive oils and balsamic vinegars. Next it was on to a microbrewery, where we sampled some honey lager. Between all these samplings we learned a lot about the history of Charlottetown, including Dunstan's Cathedral. Dunstan was the saint of ironworkers. Its spires are the tallest on the island. After visiting the church, it was on to an oyster house and pub where we sampled fresh mussels. Then it was on to the Prince Edward Distillery shop where we sampled potato vodka and gin. Our last stop was the Chip Shack, where the owner had given herself the official title Queen of the French Fry. We spent the rest of the afternoon wandering through town, including stopping at Cow's, voted the #1 ice cream in the world by someone. So it's back onto the ship, and one of the little hideaway decks that no one seems to know about, as we watch the beautiful scenery go by as we leave Prince Edward Island. On our return trip to Sydney, we take the tour A Taste of the Cabot Trail. This is a 7-hour scenic bus tour that takes you to the Cape Breton Highlands National Park. The Cabot Trail is a scenic highway that travels along the coast of northern Nova Scotia. Across the street from one of our rest stops was this woodworking shop. Of course, we had to go in and admire the workmanship and ask him for a peek into his workshop that was behind the store. Next door to the wood shop was a glass foundry with these interesting glass mobiles out in front.
We are now presently very close to high tide. At low tide, everywhere where you see water here, these are all sand flats, and one of the best sand flats in the island for clam digging.
Even with the nice scenery, 7 hours of it got a little long. After a Polynesian night aboard ship, we're back in Halifax. We start our day with a stroll along the harbor walk, taking in some of the sights and shops. As we continued our walk, we ended up at the Citadel, the fortress above the city. We are again reminded of the strong Scottish heritage of this land, with Marianne reminding me that Nova Scotia is the name for New Scotland. Just down the hill from the Citadel are the Halifax Public Gardens. These gardens were really a treat. They were some of the best public gardens that we had seen. So it's back on deck as we sail away, saying goodbye to Halifax and our last Canadian stop. Having a beautiful day in Baja Haba, as the locals pronounce it, we take a walk along the shoreline path. Having some time for a quick lunch, we stop at the Side Street Cafe, a place where we were told we had to try the lobster stew. At $16, we split a bowl, but boy was it good. After lunch, we head down to the docks to meet up with our Lulu lobster boat tour and the very educational and entertaining Captain John Nicolai. We first head out to Egg Rock Island for some wildlife viewing.
Herring bells, they're the most common you'll find here. Now there's a little harbor seal right there. It's checking us out. That's a gray seal, the one you just looked at there in the water. That's a horse head. See if it comes back up again. Softball size buoy called the toggle. The purpose of the toggle, depending on the phase of the moon, tides can go up or down 9 to almost 13 feet in this area. At low tide, you don't want the extra 9 or 13 feet of slack to rest on the bottom. Remember, we put these traps near rock formations. That line will get wrapped around rocks and debris and get snagged. So the purpose of the toggle is to make sure the line stays off the bottom at low tide. Now the lobsters have started to move into deeper waters, and that's what they have a tendency of doing. And we got one little dude there.
And a crab. And some fish.
This right here is your 7 to 8 year old lobster. And if you were to catch this in New York waters or New Jersey waters, it might only take 4 or 5 years to reach this size, because on average water temperature as you go further south, all it takes is a few degrees and they'll molt 2 or 3 times a year versus once here in Maine.
After many informative stories about lobsters and the politics and science of trapping them, we soon find ourselves back in town. Now being low tide, you can actually see the bar for which Bar Harbor got its name. Arriving in Boston early in the morning, but not having our plane leave till 4, gives us the day to explore. We start by taking a water taxi to downtown Boston, where we wander through the old Italian area of town. Walking across the Charleston Bridge to the north side of town, we head for the USS Constitution. The USS Constitution, also known as Old Ironsides, was built in 1794 and is the oldest commissioned warship still able to set sail. Stopping at a bakery for a hot apple pie and a scone, we head back to fight the crowds at Quincy Market. We soon catch our water taxi for the trip back to the airport and our farewell to Boston.